And in this video, we're going to talk about how you answer advantages and disadvantages. We're going to work with the following example throughout the entire video, so you might want to make sure to memorize or sort of keep this in the back of your mind as we sort of discuss all the different ways that you can answer an advantage or a disadvantage. We're going to work with just a very simple economy dissad. The uniqueness is that the U.S. economy is doing really well now. The plan destroys the U.S. economy, and the impact, economic collapse, causes war. You can see here that this is our map of Frederick. He's just hanging out. Plan makes Frederick go towards the cliff and ends up in a fiery pit of doom. So Frederick right here, our uniqueness is Frederick is just hanging out. So if you make that diagram over to our example, it is that the U.S. economy is doing well now. So this might actually be Frederick moving that way a little bit. And then the plan crushes the U.S. economy, i.e. Frederick starts moving towards this cliff. And then economic collapse causes war, which is a fall into this fiery pit of doom, or the impact level. There are two types of arguments that you can make to advantages and disadvantages. The first are defensive arguments, and these are arguments that tell the judge not to vote against you. These arguments do not independently win you the debate, because you need an offensive argument to be more important than the mitigated risk of their argument. So this could be an add-on, an advantage, a different disadvantage. It really is hard to say, but you need some sort of bad thing that would happen to be combined with your defensive arguments. Offensive arguments, on the other hand, these are reasons why the judge should vote for you. These arguments articulate that absent voting for your side on your proposal, a bad thing will take place. And so now that we've seen the two categories of them, let's start with defensive arguments and the different types of defensive arguments that are available. The first is a non-unique. A non-unique argument will simply be contrarian to the uniqueness claims of the advantage or disadvantage. So if they say, so in our example one, you would say that the economy is tanked now. Because remember, the uniqueness for the disadvantage example that we were working with was the U.S. economy is doing well now. Well, if you want to non-unique that, you would say the economy is not doing well now, and it is actually tanked and hurt for whatever reasons that are going on. It will always be descriptive of the status quo, much like a uniqueness argument would be. So again, we see Frederick hanging out here. And the uniqueness, for our example, has Frederick either standing here or moving this way. A non-unique argument would say that that's not true and that Frederick is actually moving towards the cliff already in the status quo. Uniqueness overwhelms the link. This articulates that the uniqueness is so strong that no matter what the plan does, it will not trigger the link. Against our economy dissad that we were using as our example, economic growth is inevitable no matter what. That would be a uniqueness overwhelms the link argument. There's no way to derail economic growth. It is too strong and too powerful. Too many sectors are growing at the particular moment. One caveat about uniqueness overwhelms the link arguments is that they should not be combined with non-unique arguments because they're usually contradictory to one another. So again, we move over to our example over here. We see Frederick hanging out. A uniqueness overwhelms the link argument would simply agree that Frederick is either standing still or moving this way, but that nothing can make Frederick alter his way of being to start moving towards the cliff. So uniqueness overwhelms the link says, you're right, Economic growth is happening, Frederick is moving this way, and there is nothing that will make Frederick move back this way. He's just going to keep on going this way, away from that fiery pit of doom. The next type of defensive argument is a no link, and it is simply contrarian to the link argument made by the other team. So against our example about the economy, the plan doesn't hurt the economy. That would be a simple no link argument. So a link argument would argue that Frederick would move this direction. A no link argument says, nope, there are no arrows, this doesn't exist, Frederick doesn't budge. He won't budge because the plan doesn't make him go this way. The next defensive argument is no internal link. The connection between the link argument and the impact argument is not true. So, in our example, it would be the U.S. economy is not key to the world economy. So this would work specifically well if the impact evidence that they're reading about economic collapse causing war was indicative of the whole global economy collapsing and causing war, as opposed to just the U.S. economy. So if that were the case, and the link evidence is only about the U.S. economy, there would be no internal link, because there's no reason why U.S. economic decline collapses the entirety of the global economy. So here, a no internal link says, yeah, Frederick might start moving in this direction, but there's no reason why he would ever fall off the cliff. So yeah, he might move this way, but never falls off the cliff. The next type of defensive argument is a no impact argument, and it is simply a claim that the impact is either untrue or not founded. There are lots of different types of no impact arguments, but a special type of one is an empirically denied, which means that either it's a historically inaccurate reading of history to say that the impact would occur. So against our example disad, where it says that economic collapse causes war, you could simply say that historical trend analysis proves that economic collapse doesn't cause war, i.e. that there have been multiple economic collapses that have not caused war to take place. And so there you would be attacking this portion of our diagram and simply saying that this does not exist. There is no fiery pit of doom. Nothing bad would take place. Another type of defensive argument is an alternate causality or impact inevitable argument. And these arguments simply say that because of other things that are taking place, i.e. trade wars or peak oil, that economic collapse is inevitable. Or you could say that the impact is inevitable also because of just wars are inevitable because of other reasons that are not based upon the economy, which sort of, both of those arguments basically say those impacts are inevitable. And so if it is true that those are inevitable, then you should vote for our proposal, because at least we can try to do something good. Maybe help out a little bit because those impacts are inevitable. Or put another way, there's no reason to reject our proposal just because those impacts are going to occur, because they're going to occur no matter what. So it shouldn't factor into your analysis. So in the diagram here, what an impact inevitable argument says is that Frederick is going to fall into this pit no matter what, and there is nothing that can be done to prevent Frederick from falling over the cliff. There are two types of offensive arguments. The first is a link turn, And it articulates that the impact is going to occur in the status quo, but the proposal can prevent that impact from occurring. So it combines a non-unique argument that was described earlier with a turn. The turn articulates that the proposal not only doesn't link, but causes the opposite to occur. For example, if we look at our economy disad, remember the shell of that argument was that the U.S. economy is doing well now and that the plan kills the economy. Well, against that example, a link turn would say that the opposite of both of those things is true. It would say that the U.S. economy is bad now, but the plan would be able to save it. So, the disad says that Frederick is hanging out here or moving in this direction. The plan causes him to move this way and fall off the cliff. A link turn, on the other hand, says that Frederick is not moving in this direction, but is in fact moving this way right now, and that the plan makes Frederick turn around and avoid the big fiery pit of doom. The other kind of offensive argument is an impact turn. When they say something bad will occur, you'll say it's actually a good thing. There are two types of impact turns that exist. The first is a direct impact turn, which says that the impact claims are inherently false and the opposite is true. So against our example argument, 1 and C disad, we would say that economic collapse actually prevents war. And then in the second type, a parallel, says that the impact claims are outweighed by a different impact scenario. So for example, economic growth causes climate change, which kills all life on Earth and therefore outweighs. So if you look here, the big fiery pit of doom, if the original 1 and C claim was that economic collapse causes war, a direct impact turn would say that economic collapse actually prevents the pit of doom from being doom and would actually make it a fluffy, nice, utopian place. A parallel impact turn, on the other hand, does not speak to the question of whether this fiery pit would exist, but would actually be operating over here and say that this is actually a bigger and worse fiery pit that could take place. So if climate change causes extinction and climate change is caused by economic growth, then you could argue that this fire is bigger and is prevented by falling off the cliff. So this oftentimes has a you gotta crack a few eggs to make an omelet approach to it. One last note about the parallel impact turn is you have to combine a parallel impact turn with impact defense if you really want to be effective. So last thing we'll talk about is a double turn. And that is when a team articulates both a link turn and an impact turn at the same time. It makes a situation where a team's own answers become a disad against them. And we'll just diagram this out real quick. So if it is a link turn, you are saying that Frederick is moving in towards the pit of doom right now, that the plan stops Frederick from moving in that direction. So the link turn makes Frederick move away from the cliff. The problem is when you combine a link turn with an impact turn, is that this is no longer a fiery pit of doom, but is in fact a fluffy utopian place that you want to get to. So a double turn says we were heading towards that utopian place, but the plan stopped it from moving that way, and therefore are not going to reach that utopia, which means a bad thing would take place. Hopefully that gives you a quick sort of rundown of the different types of arguments you can make to advantages or disadvantages. My name is Daniel